Commissioners special called meeting, our work session for October 25th, 2015. Two items today. The first is transportation. Director?
Sir, our first presentation today is to present information regarding the Cumberland Circulator Plan. I'm going to ask Chip Berger with AECom. He's the Senior Transportation Planner and Project Manager for the Cumberland Circulator Study to come forward and present the information.
Thank you, Faye. Good afternoon, and
Good
I appreciate
afternoon.
this opportunity to give you a status update on the Cumberland Circulator Plan. I want to tell you some of the things we've been doing. I want to tell you about our outreach activities and what we've done to go out and meet with the public and talk to them about the plan. Then we'll go into the operating plan development and what some of our strategies were in doing that, and talk a little bit about event day service strategies, and then we'll open it up to whatever questions you have. We really wanted to get a lot of different opinions on and input from different people about what they would expect out of a circulator in the Cumberland area. So in order to get current transit rider opinions on it, we spent several days out at the Cumberland Transfer Center administering a survey, and we received over 600 completed surveys back on that. We also talked to area stakeholders. I think there was a list of about 24 of them, and we actually got 18 interviewed. And then we also wanted to get the opinions of people that don't currently ride transit and don't currently use, they currently use their automobile to get around. So we did an employee survey, which was really, the Georgia Commute Options really helped us a lot administer this survey, but we collected almost 300 responses through an online survey there. We also did a resident survey where we went out to area apartments and interviewed people and got over 100 completed surveys there, and then also went out and got almost 60 survey responses from visitors to the area. So I feel like we got a good mix of current transit users and non-users. We also went to an opening of a park, a new trail at Acres Mill, and then also since there's a big development going on here, wanted to talk to Braves season ticket holders and see what interest they might have in some sort of circulator. And we received over 1,600 surveys back from the Braves season ticket holders. For the intercept surveys at the Cumberland Transfer Center, so these are the people that actually ride transit now, majority of them said their primary trip purpose was to get to work, so a commuter-based population. Almost all of them arrived there via transit. There was very few people that were dropped off or walked there, and they either used MARTA or Cobb Community Transit. Almost 3/4 of them had an annual income below $35,000, and almost all of them said they would use some sort of a circulator that was in the area. Typically, transit users are always receptive to more transit. For the people that don't currently ride transit, that we did the online and in-person surveys with, a majority of them drive to work, and also they use their car because they feel like transit's either inconvenient or they need their car to get around to other places in their work area. Lunch is the primary reason for them to leave their office. But they also do business and shopping trips. And almost all of them as well said that they would ride some sort of a circulator in the Cumberland area. The Braves season ticket holders, this was sent out to their whole season ticket base. About 8,000 opened the email, but only about 1,600 actually completed the survey. Almost all of them, I don't know why it wasn't 100%, but 97% said they would percent said they would attend a ball game in the new stadium, and over half said they would use a circulator. Of course, service frequency is always important in transit, but also particularly in a circulator, and also cost. But this next one, the 70% would use an express bus. I'll just ask you to kind of remember that number and that in that mode because that was pretty interesting to us that they would consider riding an express bus. A number also said more than half said they would share a ride. Not many of them currently use public transit, and a lot of them would travel to the stadium from home. So I guess they go home, get their family, and come back to the stadium from work. We asked them how they would access SunTrust Park, and there's about 14 access points or ways. The top three were to get there was highway on 75 South to Circle 75. About a quarter of them said they would do that. Another 10% said they would use Cobb Parkway South, and another 10% said they would use Spring Road. What we wanted to do was take that information and then also information that we have on the current CCT system and incorporate the circulator into the CCT system. We didn't want just a totally separate service. We wanted something that was integrated in with the existing bus services that are out there. So we looked at various route alignments, but also importantly what days of the week will it operate, what times during the day, how frequent should the service be, and who are we targeting with the service, and what type of vehicle should we use. So we came up with several route alignments. This one is the core alignment. They leave from the Cumberland Transfer Center, and it heads out. It goes by the Galleria area, and if you'll notice on the map, there's a dotted line there. And if there is a pedestrian and transit bridge, and if that is approved by this board to have that, we would definitely like to utilize that. But if it's not, then we also have an alignment that uses the existing road network. But it would also go by SunTrust Park, the Chamber, Weather Company, Cobb Energy Center. So we're trying to incorporate as many of the key activity centers as possible with this alignment. But we also want to make sure that we go by area hotels and businesses and service those. The south alignment would also leave from the Cumberland Transfer Center and travel down past the current Home Depot facility and down to Kaiser Permanente and various hotels and shopping. Home Depot has a large customer service center and that's where that south route would terminate. The north alignment would leave from the Cumberland Transfer Center, go past hotels, and end up in the Wildwood Office Park to the north. So in looking at these various services, we thought that since there was a commuter-based element to this, that we would have 6 hours of peak service. We would also operate 7 hours in the midday period, and 12 hours on the weekends. So typically in a year there's 255 weekdays, 52 Saturdays, 52 Sundays. The Sunday service, currently CCT does not offer Sunday service, so contingent upon them implementing a Sunday service, the circulator would also operate, but if CCT is not operating on Sunday, then we wouldn't anticipate the circulator would. And then it says no service on 6 holidays, and I think that would be dependent upon whether or not the Braves or some major event were occurring on a holiday, and then that would have to be considered. So this is our draft recommendation. If you'll look on the left-hand side, you'll see it's the various routes that I just discussed in the various periods during the day. So that first row talks about the core route, which is that circular route, would operate every 30 minutes. And we have it designed to operate clockwise and counterclockwise. So it would operate in 2 directions. And it would supplement the peak period circulation that's already occurring with other CCT routes, the 10A and the 10B. In the midday, it would operate more frequently, and there's a couple reasons for that. One is CCT service typically does not operate as frequently in the midday, so this would help to supplement that CC2 service that is out there in the midday, and also to provide better frequency for people that wanted to travel out for lunch or do shopping in the midday. Then it would go back and then we go to the south route in the midday period. The Route 20 is currently, the CCT Route 20 is currently being examined to adjust its frequencies. And so this circulator would be designed to help supplement and complement that midday route on the south route. And then the core route would go back to the 30-minute frequency in both directions in the evening, and then also on Saturday and Sunday if necessary on Sunday. And so we took, and we did not include the north route in this because we thought this core and the south route were really sort of the best bang for the buck for an initial service. So those two were picked, but the north route could be implemented in a future phase. And then the operating costs were estimated by determining the number of revenue hours the service would operate times the current CCT contracted service cost per revenue hour. So it would take 5 vehicles to operate the peak service or the most service at one time, and then we would need an additional vehicle as a spare. Now, I will say the operating costs currently don't include any potential offsetting revenue from fare box recovery or if an advertising program were implemented. Okay. We also looked at the capital cost. As I said, we would need 6 vehicles, and the vehicle we've identified as what we feel is the most appropriate for this service is a 30-foot clean diesel Gillig heavy-duty bus. Clean diesel is, very environmentally friendly, but it's also a technology that CCT is very used to handling and has an experienced maintenance staff to take care of it. So we thought that would be a good starting technology and size of a vehicle for this. We also looked at where the bus stops would be and where potential shelters would be. So we thought there'd be maybe 3 additional shelters. There's already shelters out there. So 3 additional shelters, 30 bus stops. The branding per vehicle, and that's wrapping the bus, getting the image on it. It's $8,000 per vehicle, so that's $48,000, and then some sort of passenger information system, next bus type technology, where people can find the bus and have monitors at key locations to see when the next bus is arriving. So the grand total was just under $3.5 million. Typically, the federal government pays 80% of capital costs, and the local jurisdiction pays 20%, so it'd be around $700,000 for the county. We also are considering, and we're starting to look at event day service. So if there's a major event, say a baseball game, how would people get to the game utilizing transit? And so we would look at providing service potentially from the MARTA Arts Center station, connect there, also potentially at the home station. And then also look at providing service from existing park and ride lots using express buses that are terminating their service there, and instead of going back to the garage, they could carry people over to SunTrust Park or wherever the major event was occurring. And as we talked earlier with the Braves survey, 70% of them said they would be willing to ride some sort of express bus service. So we thought that might tie in well with the park and ride lot service. And then we're also looking at service from East and South Cobb locations. Currently, there's not service in East Cobb, but there is the Mableton Park and Ride down in South Cobb. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Appreciate it very much. Can you just outline for us before we go into specific questions, or maybe, Director, you might want to do this. You might want to do this is to outline before we're going to, what our next steps are, where we're at, what would be next, and then we'll open up for specific questions.
Couple of items, sir. At tonight's meeting, we are going to be, there's an item on consent that requests your authorization for the advertisement of and conduct of a public hearing. That public hearing, I believe, is scheduled for the second meeting in September. Then in October 13th, we'll be coming back to you with a further update on implementation. In the meantime, in addition to that public hearing, there are two public open house events. One is on September the, 9th, and the second is on September the 10th. They are both being hosted in the Cumberland in the service area. Actually, one's at Embassy Suites at Acres Mill, and then the second one is at our paratransit building. So to be able to seek more public input. So that's all of the upcoming outreach that's still, and activities that are scheduled, sir.
Okay. And as it relates to funding, we've identified potential costs as we stand today. Obviously, that'll be fine-tuned, but in terms of funding, that hasn't been talk to the funding issue.
Yes, sir. When we said we'd be coming back in October with some more detailed recommendations on implementation, we'll be bringing back at that time more information on potential funding. But we're continuing to look at both partnership opportunities as well as our existing FTA resources and as to how we would fund the system.
Okay, and more to that, the circulator, contrary to what might have been published recently, it's not taxpayer dollars that are currently being targeted for funding. In fact, it's a $3 hotel motel fee that is in the Cumberland Special Services District 1 that is the primary source of funding for this. We'll look to supplement that through our partners, as you have indicated, or advertising revenues or other things that are available to us. But I want to make it clear for the public that the erroneous reports regarding that taxpayers would be collecting the brunt of this is inaccurate. That
That's
actually
correct,
there's a dedicated source already attached to it, and we'll be pursuing other sources to offset even that regard. Commissioner Ott, you had a question?
Yes, I've got a couple. The 30-foot clean diesel Gillig heavy-duty bus, is that the standard CCT bus? Or is the CT, is it bigger?
They currently have a contract with Gillig, but this would be a smaller bus than the typical 40-foot.
So it's not the regular blue buses that are out there, this is smaller than
Correct.
that?
So it's
Okay.
a smaller
All right.
Sir, man, come, what's your name? Faye? Sorry.
It is both smaller and it's a more sort of sleek, modern body
Okay.
to the vehicle.
I was just kind of comparing. Okay, and so then we talked about event service, and you kind of listed the things that you're considering. None of that cost is in the cost estimate, is that correct? Other than the
In
cost
this-
of the equipment.
We have not
Brad, could we go
determined-
back to the cost slide?
Yeah, this is all for the circulator. The costs on this is for the everyday circulator, those
Right.
those routes that we
So,
looked
and
at.
so that kind of leads to my next question. So yes, we talked, so any servicing for Braves events at the Cobb Energy Center, or anything like that would be additional cost.
Correct.
And additional hours because the core evening in here ends at 7.
Correct.
So basically there's, where it says, core evening, core Saturday, core Sunday, and it says provide service for entertainment and nightlife. None of that really counts because it doesn't go past 7 o'clock.
Right. It'd be more for dinner or that, but
Well,
it really wouldn't be.
if you go for dinner
event day.
and it stops at 7, you're not going to be able to get back.
Correct. Yeah, and I would imagine that as that SunTrust development matures, that might change. But initially, for this initial phase, we thought ending at 7 would be appropriate. And
Okay,
then-
well, my concerns with that, Mr. Chairman, are that half of this draft recommendation here deals with something that is not going to happen because it's after 7 o'clock, there's no way people are going to use it to go for entertainment and nightlife if they can't get home. Okay, and so I have concerns about that. And one of the things that we talked about, and I don't know if you were in the meeting that I had with when you interviewed me, I think one of the other things that needs to be considered, for example, and is it Route 10 that goes into Wildwood, the CCT route?
50
What number is it?
and,
There's one that goes,
50.
it goes all the way till 11 o'clock at night, okay? And one of the things that I brought up was we have resources right now going into Wildwood Office Park till 11 o'clock at night when most of the businesses are out by 5 or 6. And so my question was, why can we not repurpose those after, say, the 5 o'clock hour, and then that becomes like a nighttime express, which can either go over to East Cobb to provide service back and forth for entertainment and nightlife or other things like that. Because basically we have a CCT route that I'd be willing to bet, and I asked for the numbers to come back, what the ridership is on that route after 6 o'clock. So my concerns with what we've heard here today is that, clearly half of this chart that we're looking at right now wouldn't be provided by what we're being briefed on. And I think we have other assets that could be better utilized that we currently operate.
All good recommendations. Thank you.
So,
Anybody else? Commissioner Weatherford?
You mentioned the repurposing of some buses from the express routes from the park and rides that were going to usually be deadheaded into service. Does that mean they're going to take a load down and then go to deadhead, and then how are they going to get back? Or did I miss something?
Well, we're still working on the event day service, but there are a number of buses, CCT Express buses, that terminate their service at various park and ride lots. And we thought on the way that they could, instead of going straight back to the garage, they could go to SunTrust Park and then go to the garage, have the bus cleaned up, change out crew, do whatever, and then do other service. So that was just one thing that we were looking at, is how you best perform that service, or the park and ride lot shuttle service.
So once they deadhead in, they're going to go get cleaned up and go back in service? Is that what you're thinking?
That hasn't totally been determined yet, but that's something we're looking at.
Just because the way I looked at it, it was they're going to drop you off and then good luck getting back.
Oh, no. There would be service to get you back from the game.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments, Commissioner?
You said that the 30-foot bus was smaller than the standard CCT. What's the seating capacity difference?
It's really not that much difference. One thing we're looking at on these 30-foot buses is to have a lot of standard seating, but then also some perimeter seating, so that it would allow, if there was a need for some overflow, there's more room for standees. But it's very similar capacity to a 40-foot bus.
Okay. And have we determined the fare? Is it free? Is it comparable to CCT, riding the CCT, or?
It's my understanding it would be the same CCT fare.
Yeah, we've not determined that, Commissioner, but right now what we plan to do is to integrate it in with our overall CCT fare structure.
Okay. I think.
Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Cube.
Good afternoon.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm assuming this service is going to run under the CCT department and function similarly, or is this going to be an external service?
Right now, we anticipate running it under the CCT family of services.
Okay, so part of it will be included with the maintenance and operation of CCT.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. And the chairman spoke to this, but I wanted to know if you can reiterate the county contribution. In one of the slides, it provides 80% federal share, 20% local share. Where we see those funds coming from the local share?
There are, I know the chairman specifically pointed out, I think it's the hotel tax. component that could be utilized for that. And then in addition, Commissioner, we already have other funding sources where we have local funding that's committed overall in our transit system.
Okay.
And since this will be integrated in with our transit system, we'll be able to utilize that as well.
Some of our existing transit funding. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? I think, Director, I think this is a good snapshot where we are today. Clearly, we've got work to do. Some good suggestions from the board and some more input from the community. And we look forward to the next step of seeing what comes out of those outreach programs and your additional studies. So thank you.
Thank you very
sir.
much for your time.
Thank you.
This will take us to item 2, which is, again, under the Department of Transportation, information regarding Cobb Community Transit Branding and Marketing Plan. Director.
Absolutely, sir. Very exciting. As you know, this past year, Cobb Community Transit celebrated its 25th year of service. We currently operate providing just under 4 million trips per year and have done a lot of really unique things. We're looking at new service in Cobb. We've just launched the first flex bus service in Georgia. We are looking at new transfer stations. We are looking at an overhaul of our shelters, our stops, and so forth. And we have just, with the board's support, ordered the first 35, or will be ordering the first 35 replacement vehicles for our fleet that has certainly reached its useful life. So today we are very excited as a part of celebrating that first 25 years of CCT service and looking to the future. It's always good to take a look at your brand and to think about your branding strategy. I'm very pleased today to introduce Mark Martin with Jackson Spalding. He's the Director of Brand Strategy, and he's going to be revealing to you our new brand strategy for CCT.
Great, thank you and good afternoon. What I'd like to do over the next couple of minutes is to share 2 things. One, the benefits of a brand refreshment, and then also unveil the actual branding components that we have been working on very closely with the CCT over the past couple of months. First, just to start, the way that we typically think of brands are like this. We think of brands in terms of consumer brands. We think of the Coca-Colas and the McDonald's and the Chick-fil-A's and those types. But the fact is that these are brands as well. Transportation and delivery are also brands. And the reason that they're brands is because they're known for something. There's something about them that is different than other brands in their category. This is a definition that I like to use about what makes a strong brand, and that is it's a product or a service like CCT that is well defined, so that we know that we've got the right words that are defining exactly what this brand is, what this service is. Also that it's clearly differentiated. And we're not talking in terms here about necessarily being differentiated from other transit systems. Here I think that what we're talking about is being differentiated from other transportation opportunities, other alternatives that people have. We want them to use CCT. Also, products or services that are connecting emotionally. And so you might wonder, how does actually a bus transportation, so how does transit connect emotionally to people? Well, if you think about it, there are people that ride those buses every day. And they've got a relationship with those drivers, and they've got a relationships with passengers that they see every day. So there is an emotional connection. Also because they depend on transit, there's an emotional connection there as well. But also a brand is formed when people have when it's earned people's loyalty. People want to use it. They want to be an ambassador for the brand, and then it's building a good reputation as well. So since everything communicates, what you want to do is to find the right words to define what the brand is, and also the right images as well to bring those words to life. It really is an ongoing process as far as building a brand, because times change and brands change, and they're continuously evolving, and also styles change. So what you want to do is make sure that you are current with styles, and also that you're using the right words to speak to new audiences as well. An example, as far as making a change, is sometimes it's making a name change. If you look on the right of your screen, you'll see we're very familiar with those brands. But you look on the left, and those are the original names. You know, it actually, probably Nike is much easier to market than Blue Ribbon Sports. You know, and you can see that, with the other examples as well. But sometimes it's not even just a name change. Sometimes It's a change in look. But it doesn't have to be a drastic look sometimes. Delta, however, this goes back to 1928. And so there were 19 changes that Delta made in their look, although there are things about them. Certainly the Delta icon has remained the same, but they've made changes over the course of the years. They have actually, they've kept up with the times. A system that did that recently was up in Raleigh, and their system is called CAT. We did find in our research that there are lots of CATs running around the United States in terms of transit systems. We did not suggest that Cobb also be a CAT. But what Raleigh did, if you look at this, it's a very basic bus, and it's yellow. It's red and white. And the reason that it is because I'm sure the Wolfpack is there, North Carolina State, right, is in the area. But what did they... What they did recently, well, they changed. There's no more red and white.
What color is a Tar Heel?
Tar Heel blue, Carolina blue.
Carolina blue, yeah.
What is a Tar Heel?
Keep going. Interrupting our speaker.
Well, this
I'll
one's
give you a
Just
lesson.
talking about branding.
I'll give you a lesson later.
Like an Auburn Tiger or whatever that is.
Well, we'll pay start.
Well, they changed it anyway, so that it no longer salutes the Wolfpack. What it does now, if you look at this, it's called Go Raleigh. Okay, and so what's interesting about this is they did retain some of the red in these little triangles, but they add all these other little triangles as well. And what those triangles represent is the research triangle. So they used an element of the area to create really nice graphics. And you can see how clean and modern and fresh these look, even just the color of the bus itself. But it's gone from this to this, which is going to be a lot more engaging for people. So how does refreshing a brand actually help build it? Well, it's just like it's like introducing a product. I worked for 20 years in marketing communications at Coca-Cola and was responsible for unveiling a lot of their products, doing the awareness and public relations and all that around it. So it's just like this. It really is. It's generating awareness. It's creating that new interest. What you want is you want people to try the product, and then you want those people to turn into regular users, to become customers. Well, how does that relate to CCT? Well, what you want to have happen is that people will see this brand and they'll notice there's something new about CCT. That they want to learn more, and a way that you can do that is through your marketing and advertising and public relations and appearances, things such as that. Once they learn more, what you want them to do is you want them to give it a try, to be willing to give that a try. I'm going to share some research in just a second that shows that right now it's sort of wallpaper to some people. The people that you want to increase ridership with, like with Express, it's not really even on their radar. Mm-hmm. But when you introduce a fresh new look and a new name and all that, it certainly will be. But what you want to have happen there is that they become customers, and then you have ridership that increases and all the benefits that go with that. There are additional benefits to that, however, that you can get employees very excited when you have a brand refresh. It's something new. It adds energy to the company and to the organization. It also can increase the public's perception, improve their perception of CCT with this fresh look. And then also one thing we discovered in our research is there is a very strong sense of pride that you already know in Cobb County. And so I think that a nice, fresh look and system, a new system, can be one of those things that actually will help enhance people's pride. It gives them something else to point to. So the research, we used a research partner to do qualitative research about the brand. And what we did is we talked to people who are currently riding CCT. We talked to people who weren't riding. We wanted to know, why do you and why do you like it? And then why don't you? And what would encourage you to ride? And so there's a lot of very good, rich information. And we looked at it two ways. We looked at it from the local service. And so what it told us overall is that CCT is listening to them. They're providing a service that is very much needed. From the local level, they're saying, you know what, you get me where I need to go. You know, I don't always have other modes of transportation. You can get me there. They do agree that it's fairly priced. They really like very much the friendly drivers, and they like the people that they travel with as well. And they appreciate that you've expanded routes. So their reason for riding really is, it's the best option available to me, and it does fill a need for me. So it makes something that they have to do possible. Well, it's similar to that for the Express service. It's something that they have to do, but what it does for them is it makes it more pleasurable, and it makes it more productive, because now they're off the highway. You notice up here, one of the things that it says is that they have freedom from road rage. So they're not so stressed out, when they get home at night. We actually had someone tell us, I get home and my wife walks in and I'm just a bear. And I've started taking CCT Express and I walk in and she says, "You've changed." It literally was pretty amazing. And the folks that we talked to. But it gives them, this is really interesting too, it gives them the gift of time, something they didn't have. It may be that they actually have to take a little bit more time to go park. They have to take a little more time to ride the bus downtown or to Ackworth, wherever they're going. But what they find is that what they get back in that time that they were spending concentrating on the road is time that they won't give up. We had several say, "Now that I do it, I wouldn't go back." They love that express service. They agree it's fairly priced. Of course, it's clean and comfortable as well. But what they're saying is it's enhancing my quality of life. So in both of these cases, what it's really doing is making life better. For one, it's making something they have to do possible. And for one, it's making something that they have to do more pleasurable as well and more productive. And it actually could work both ways. A couple other very quick things the research told us is that there's a lot to like about CCT and Cobb, that even though there are different perceptions from the local riders and express riders, it positively impacts their life. It's a good thing. It's making life better. That the prospective riders, as I mentioned earlier, don't necessarily always pay attention to CCT. It's not necessarily on their radar, and we can change that. But a new brand and its messaging will help do that. And what we want that to do is to be able to point out, here's why riding CCT and using these services is going to help make your life better. So just to wrap up this piece, and then I'm going to unveil the brand components to you. It really is about engaging more people through the brand refresh. It is attracting more riders, and then it's building this stronger brand for the next 25 years. So what you're going to see are the brand components that are in development. It's the brand positioning, which I'm going to talk about and explain what that is in just a moment. The system's name, the logo concept, the bus design concept, then also a color palette and something called brand architecture. The brand architecture is simply like an organizational chart of how all the pieces fit together, all the different brands and the services fit together. So the process itself is important to understand because we started with the research that I told you about, the qualitative research, the riders and the non-riders, speaking to a lot of those folks. We looked at other transit systems. I studied no less than 35 of them. We went around and we found a list and looked at the ones that had really interesting, unique names and things such as that, studied their designs, et cetera. We also sought input from representatives of CCT. We just last night were with the Transit Advisory Board, and we unveiled what we are going to show to you today to them to get their feedback. We were with them last month as well. We've been very tied to the hip with CCT staff working through the project with the DOT, Cobb Community Options, the ARC, the Chamber, Travel and Tourism, and we've gotten good feedback on the work from them as well. There were multiple rounds of brainstorming by our firm Jackson Spalding and with Kimley Horn, who is the lead project manager on this project, and we are a partner with them. There was a lot of ongoing input from CCT. We did have a trademark attorney work with us all along the way as well to make sure that what we are creating is something that you can own. And then finally, the selection of the name itself was based on some brand objectives and certain criteria, and those are these. Does the name reflect the brand's new positioning, which I'm going to share in just a moment? Will the name appeal to riders and to the drivers? That's very important. Will it reflect the brand's personality? And working with CCT, we decided what that personality really needs to be is there needs to have a professional feel to it. It's classy, it's distinctive. We like that word a lot. Fresh and creative. How does it sound? How does this name sound when we say it in conversation and we use it in advertising? And then how does it sound with the service names attached? And we'll show you an example of that. And then finally, does this name allow you to do something really interesting from a creative aspect? So brand positioning, what a brand positioning statement is, think of it as it's like a formula. And that formula includes who you're targeting, what you do, why it matters, and what the benefits are. So for CCT, we developed this in conjunction with all the input that we received. And that's for people who want to make their life better. The new system is a smart way to connect with the things they value and to the places they find opportunity. I'm going to come back and break that down in just a second. I did want to address this first, and the trademark attorney had recommended that there is no reason to change the Cobb Community Transit name. That's what's on the side of the buses now. What he suggested is keep Cobb Community Transit as like the parent company, the division being the parent company, but then create a brand name for the system itself and for its services. And so that's what we've done. And on the buses, you will see that it's going to say a service of CCT. Back to the brand positioning for just a second. What you're going to see in the name and also in the graphics themselves, which I'm getting ready to show, is that it really underscores this idea of connection. Connecting people to the things they value, connecting them to their jobs, to shopping, to family, to friend, to church, to events. Also connecting them to the places that they can find opportunity. Opportunity was a big word that kept coming up over and over. And you think about it, it's like opportunity to a new career, or it's opportunity to via the classroom. You go into Kennesaw State. So those things were critical in this idea of connection in the development of the brand. So there is the curtain, right? And that brand positioning was the inspiration for this, for Cobb Link. And I want to talk a little bit about this, and then I'm going to go deeper into it, but just a couple of things. As you see it there on the screen, the link is in blue. We felt that there was a lot of equity already in the blue that you have. This is a different color blue, but we retained some of that equity. Also, the typeface itself is a sans serif. It's sort of a Helvetica type typeface, which has been around actually for quite a long time, and it will be around for a long time. So it's timeless. It won't ever go out of fashion. It's not terribly trendy. Cobb there, right up above it, is in gold. The inspiration for that came from the seal. Whenever we see the Cobb seal posted somewhere, there's the gold there. And then this image to the left, that image is actually called a mark. So that's your brand mark, and it's sort of shaped like a clover leaf. I'm going to talk about that more in just a second. But that is your mark. On the right, obviously, is the brand name. Those things together create your logo. Let me go a little bit deeper. The link actually reflects the brand positioning. Obviously, it's this idea of connecting. The reason that we chose to spell it with a C is that the C can represent Cobb, but also we thought that it made it look really nice and distinctive. You know, it's very, very different, but there's a very distinctive look to that, which was one of our goals. And then finally, you might have noticed that the mark itself is actually made up of the letters that spell Cobb. So it's a lowercase c with the blue, the O with the purple, and then the orange-red with the two B's. So what that's meant to represent is a lot of interconnection as well. So you've got links and interconnectivity and roadways and routes. There's a lot of different things that you can do with that. So what does that look like on a bus? Well, it could look like this. And so this bus, and let me start with the base. The base of the bus would be like a chrome silver kind of bus, a very stylish looking color. Actually, Flex uses that chrome color in some of their graphics right now. So that would be the base color. Across the top, there would be, it's really actually more of a warm gold that would go across the top of the bus. What is kind of difficult to see there on that screen, but it says, up on the top, it says a service of CCT, and then to the right, we have Cobb Link as well. Down in the middle, you have obviously the logo, but then and the mark, but we've taken the mark and we've actually increased that. I think we heard some, I'm going to pass out something. We heard some feedback last night. This actually is not the right, it's very close to it. It was the original one that we showed last night. We heard some feedback last night from TAB that suggested that on the left that we reduce the size of that logo a little bit, which we're going to do, so you see more of the stem, you can see more of the letters. And then also, let's pass those out right now. And we did add the Cobb at the top that you see, the service of CCT. So you'll be able to actually see that both of those things easier on the rendering. So we've reduced the graphic on the left a little bit. And we enlarged the graphic in the middle, the Cobb Link. And obviously, this is a concept that we're still working with, but we are looking forward to getting your feedback from that as well. What this would look like in terms of with a service, actually let me speak to this first. This is the brand architecture. So what the architecture looks like if you have Cobb Community Transit as is actually the parent company, if you will, the division. Cobb Link is like the master brand, and then under each one of those, you would have the services, and there would be colors assigned to those services. So, and also new names, and for several of them, Cobb Link, Flex would remain the same because Flex is something that you just introduced. For Cobb Link Lift, that actually would replace paratransit. Well, we like the idea that there are lifts on the paratransit buses, but also the fact that there are other paratransits around the U.S. that use the word lift. We like that it's a nice word. Cobb Link Direct would replace Express. Certainly we have Greta Express with the big X in the press. We feel this will help distinguish that a little bit, and we love the idea of the direct link. Cobb Link Circulator, that name would not change. And right now, there's not an official name for Cobb Link Local, but we're suggesting that perhaps we start using that word as well. So what that would look like, as far as with the logo, is we would simply drop it right under there, just right under the logo. So next steps is to finalize the bus graphics. We will be working on those over the next 3 weeks. We'll be back here on the 22nd for your meeting to present the final bus graphics. Those will need to go to the manufacturer immediately because we're on a pretty tight production turnaround so that we can make the prototype being delivered in the spring, and then also the 35 new buses that are anticipated for mid-year. So we'd be happy to entertain comments or questions.
Thank you. Some good insight. I'm surprised you went through the whole presentation without talking about a drill bit, though. Commissioner Ott.
Yeah, I just have one question. I understand the concept and I think the similarity with the Cobb, the mark on the back. I think of the tail designs on airplanes. But my question is, we have wrap advertising right now, which would seem to me to totally take away from the whole concept that we're talking about here.
Right, I'll let.
And also, while Faye is coming up, this is the side view.
Right.
Is there anything on the back?
Well, there will be, absolutely. This was just the first concept of the design.
Okay.
So we want to get feedback on this first.
Yeah, so the big question is, clearly, advertising would take away from the whole design.
Absolutely. Commissioner, we got asked that question last night as well at Transit Advisory Board. And what we're exploring right now, which is also pretty exciting, is I know that we've all appreciated the revenue that the bus wraps and some of the advertising on the buses has afforded us. But we think that there's an opportunity that we have now in this digital age, digital media, to replace that without having bus wraps any longer and taking anything away from this new, fresh logo. One of the things that Jim Wilgus likes to describe this frequently, if you go to Braves games, for example, and you have the Braves app on your phone, as soon as you walk into the ballpark, it says, "Welcome back. This is your 10th visit, and in honor of your 10th visit, you'll get a free whatever, or you get a discount at this place." Our intention is to work with our media advertising because Signal has already told us that they're interested in going a different route with advertising anyway, and we're working with that now. We think that we have the opportunity to explore without doing bus wraps any longer, still having advertising revenue, and figuring out opportunities that we have perhaps to offset any revenue that we might lose, but to do it through the kinds of both patrons of the buses. The thing that you then lose is the value that just the passerby sees on the bus. But we think we've got some opportunities with our shelters and the improvements that we're going to be making there to recapture some of that.
Okay, and I don't remember, do the inside of the buses have video monitors that are putting up like route information or stop information?
I'm not certain, sir.
Because of
can't
course,
remember.
if they do, that's another opportunity you could, in
We
between
have
the route stop
stationary-
information. Yeah, I mean, if there's stop information coming up like next stop or whatever.
The buses are going to be equipped with also with Wi-Fi. So I think some of the stuff, some of the information that you're describing with regard to changeable signage inside the bus, we can incorporate into the bus order as we place it. Right now, I think there's only, if I recall correctly, sir, there's only stationary advertising placement and information placement inside the buses.
Okay, and then last question. So every vehicle, whether it be the 30-foot like circulator ones that we talked about earlier, and the existing CCT bus lengths, and the paratransit and all that, they would all look exactly the same, with the exception of the brand name, like for example, Lyft or Local or But I mean, like, what I'm referring to is more like
Right.
the tail end of the bus would be the
Right, so
same.
that there's consistency in the brand. There may be a color, you know, obviously each color design.
Yeah, I mean, I was
design of the
more
service.
referring to the,
yeah.
Cobb mark, the mark
Absolutely.
one. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes,
Commissioner Cupid?
thank you.
Thank you.
First, I want to share that your firm did a great job in rebranding CCT as we know of it, or come to know of it today. I'm very impressed with the level of creativity used, with the colors, with identifying different services that we have within CCT, and also with the logo, which I think
Thank
is really creative, and I think helps to show a forward shift in how people view transit. I do have a similar concern that Commissioner Ott shared with respect to revenue too, because we have been accustomed to seeing that wrap, and would like to learn more about that. Are you providing, or will CCT be providing opportunity for public comment on this particular design prior to approval in September? Okay. One thing I would like to do, and I don't have my next town hall until October, but I would like to somehow put this in my newsletter, just so, I saw it was confidential, but
We
this
can
is
do
at a
it
work
Thursday
session.
at mine down in your district too.
Okay. Yeah,
That would help.
I think
It's
that would be
Thursday, isn't
great.
it? Yep.
Okay. I would like to share the direction and see if there's any feedback with respect to current riders on what's being proposed, if you'd be amenable to that.
Absolutely. I think that's actually a great idea, Commissioner, if all of the commissioners would like for us to take the opportunity to push it out in the weekly updates, just to put the image out there and a brief description of what we're doing so that you all have the opportunity to get some feedback. I know that Transit Advisory Board last night was overwhelmingly very supportive. Everybody sees it as a great investment in the system, so.
Good. And one last question, it might be for you also, Mr. Massimo, but with respect to how we would roll this out with our current fleet, would it be a staggered approach? Because I assume that, I mean, it's going to take a significant capital cost for us to modify or replace our current vehicles to.
We wouldn't do it, we'll do it as we reorder the vehicles,
Okay,
Commissioner.
and we've already reordered some, I believe.
That's why the September date, if you can put that back up there, it was tied to the vehicle order.
Okay, so we're going to start launching this fairly soon with that order.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. Okay, great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Just,
One more question.
Yes.
The drawing you gave us here is of the, the full-size CCT bus. Do you happen to have, drawings of the other vehicles?
Not yet. We haven't applied that look to those other vehicles
Okay.
yet, so
All
that
right.
we can get input on this.
see, you're caught in that circle where at some point you need to update the commissioners and where we are, but you don't want to go too far. But then again, you have to go far enough, and it's hard to do, and I think it was a good balance. I like a lot. Number one, I know the logic you use bringing us to this point is very, very sound.
Thank you.
And the clarity in which you built the story as to why this makes sense was very clear, and I think very, very well put together, and I appreciate
Thank you.
the time you took to do that. And whoever your folks are that interpreted those words and created this expression via this way, I think did a great job as well.
Thank you.
I think there's a long way in doing exactly what you said it should be doing in the first place, which is not just a rebranding, but have a specific purpose to try to bring new attention and new ridership, which ultimately, new ridership is where we want to go.
Exactly.
And so I think that I like it a lot. I like it a lot.
Thank you.
Commissioner,
Yes, I do too. I think it's very sharp. What about the website? Will that change? The link
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the things
So-
we've been charged with is to actually do we call it a skin. It's what the design of the look and feel of the site would look like. So that's one of the things that we will be working on.
Okay, so I know this may be too much information, especially with this design, but if I'm driving in my car and I pass a nice, new, fresh CCT bus and it says Cobb Link, and I want to pursue a schedule or potential ridership? How will I know where to go?
We have already purchased the URLs for coblink.com, .net, all of those. I could see that perhaps in the back or certain places in the bus, you might be able to say www.coblink.com.
Okay, that's what I'm,
Exactly.
if it will be on the bus anywhere.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I think that's
You
it.
can scan the buses that's going by.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
put a QR code on there.
Yeah.
Give it a shot.
All right. I get to bring up Delta because you brought it up first.
Okay.
They give me a hard time over here. But the reason I bring it up and the reason I'm asking about the other drawing.
Sure.
And I can appreciate the fact that we have the CCT buses that we refer to them on order. But I will tell you that one of the things with the airplanes, you talk about public perception.
Right.
When the different airlines start repainting and rebranding their airplanes, the passenger perception is if they come up to one of the old ones, the interior of the plane can be exactly the same as the airplane with the new exterior brand, but the perception to the public is that, oh, I'm on an old airplane. Okay, so I would caution in waiting too long because, for example, we don't have new paratransit buses on order. Okay, we don't have senior service buses on order. So I would not wait too long because there is that perception by the public that you're getting on something old and it's not going to be as good, and then immediately they're going to be looking for things that are going wrong.
Got it.
So, when you're discussing about public perception, yes, I think it makes sense for the big buses, but I do think that if we're going to, whatever the final design is, that the other ones that are not going to be ordered need to be done relatively quickly so that the majority of what people see out on the street is the same.
Sure. And I think when we're introducing the brand, then we will apply these graphics to those so that people can see how the family of buses work together.
Well, no, but I'm talking about the actual,
Right. I
physical,
understand.
the ones that are on the street.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But to address your first point of, can we have the others as well? Thank you.
Good work.
Just, I'm sorry, one other
Sorry.
addition, yes. if
Sure.
I
Go ahead.
may add, and the services provided also include Flex, and I know we just have those nice new Flex buses, but it would be nice to see some link to the Flex service to this, especially since this adds a shot of color, to perhaps see a very small insertion of this logo on the bus, so it just ties into the system if that hasn't already been considered. Okay, thank you.
I got one last question, and I thought of it when I brought it up.
Okay.
You didn't have it on here,
doesn't
but
matter
senior
if you-
services, has there been thought to,
You had asked about that, Commissioner, when we were
Right.
coming around and meeting with each of you. And we're not, we are probably not able to incorporate senior services into this at this time because CCT Services operates under a federal regulatory structure that doesn't extend to senior services, and I'm not sure that you would really want for it to. So those are right now still distinctive services.
right, but they could, it doesn't have to necessarily say a service of CCT,
Right.
but it could still use the CobLink logo.
And what we would have to do, sir, is see what sort of funding might be available through Title III Older Americans Act through senior services to make some adaptation onto their vans and so forth so that there's continuity of fleet. But in terms of the actual, CCT has to remain unique because
Sure,
of the
I understand
federal
that part,
regulatory structure. Yes, sir.
So basically, it's a good idea, and we'll chase it down.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it, sir.
Right. Thank you.
Agenda item 3, to present information regarding successes in safety with a
We are-
focus on fixed object crashes.
Yes, sir. Now we've had the opportunity now to share a couple of work session presentations with you that are very much focused on the future and the what all is to come and what can be. But this is probably the most exciting presentation to us of the day because it's about what we do, what we're about, what is core to our mission every day, all the time, and that's safety. I'm really proud, particularly on this presentation, because the department regularly participates in peer reviews and exchanges that serve to further improve standard operating procedures. One of the things you may recall from 2013 is we brought forward a process review that we did with partners external to the county as well as those inside the county that was specific to guardrail maintenance, signing, and pavement markings. Maybe not the most exciting stuff, but absolutely core to our mission. Most recently, The department participated in the Tri-State Roadway Departure Peer Exchange. This group included safety experts from Federal Highway Administration, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, and local agencies. The primary focus was to share safety countermeasures specific to roadway departures and fixed object crashes. Only 2 counties in Georgia were invited to participate, making this both an honor and an acknowledgement of our success and of your success. With that, I'd like to ask Chris Pruitt, our Transportation Division Manager, to come forward. He participated in this review and will share it with you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hankerson and board. Focus here is on fixed object crashes. Next slide. This is a reminder here. This is a guardrail out on Atlanta Road 4 or 5 years ago of the importance of clear zones and safety. It's also a reminder of some strange things can happen out on the road system. This particular crash was on Atlanta Road at approaching 285. The waste management truck that you see down in the parking lot hit the rail on the trailing end of the structure. Rolled down the hill and ended up in the parking lot. What happened is the driver had a seizure, and when the seizure occurred, he went across on the wrong side of the road. The good news is the driver was okay after this crash, but again, it's a telling picture of what can happen when a large vehicle strikes rail, particularly when it's going in the wrong direction. A quick word about where we are with data, particularly with fatal crashes overall. This goes back to 1987, and you'll see this is the number of fatal crashes per year that excludes the interstates as the cities. So this is what we would call our roads, the county maintained roads. The good news here you see is that it's a downward linear position since 1987, so that's good. But what I would point out too is the last few years, you see a slight uptick in crashes. That has happened at the local level as well as at the national and certainly at the state level. We're averaging about 32 to 34 fatal crashes per year. So if we take a look at those crashes from 1987 to 2013, again, looking at that same data set, if we ask the question why, what's causing those fatal crashes, 29% of which are fixed object is the largest. The next largest slide you'll see is 20% is those coded as others. And if we dive even a little bit deeper into the data, we find that the contributing factors is failure to yield, failure to maintain lane, and then also if you look at it from a driver vehicle standpoint, about 9% are DUIs. So what do we do about that? So we have those crashes. We know the contributing factors for those crashes. How do we address those crashes? Here's a list from the Federal Highway Administration. This is the tool of countermeasures. It lists lots of good countermeasures that we can use to really address fixed road or fixed object crashes as well as leaving the lane crashes. And what we see is basically everything in green is things that your DOT has implemented, and a few of which we can highlight today. And the ones that we haven't, quite frankly, those the truck escape ramps. Obviously, we don't maintain the interstate highway system, so we don't have any ramps. So the ones that we don't implement are very specific to the interstate system. So this slide's a little bit hard to read, but this is a quick case study. Piedmont Road crash. Sandy Plains would be off to your right if you're familiar with the area. This road is 45-mile-per-hour facility, carries a little over 20,000 vehicles per day. It's a 4-lane median divided road. And what we had from over a 3-year period, from 2007 to 2009, we had a total of, in that time frame, we had a total of 3 fatal crashes in the curve. 2 of which were very specific to fixed object crashes. Furthermore, they were specific to trees in the median. The 3rd crash, a fatal crash, was a pedestrian crash that quite frankly didn't have anything to do with fixed objects, but it was generally reported that there were a total of 3 crashes over a 3-year period in this curve. And the diagram here, the purpose of the diagram is also to show that there were other crashes in addition to the fatals. So what do we do about it? Well, in 2010, there were 3 sort of key components, and this is that same curve, a little more of an engineering data. What this curve is, what this diagram is trying to show, there were three major parts. First of all, we removed the trees in the median. Second of all, we put up 910 linear feet of back-to-back W-beam guardrail. And we also improved the delineation in the signs and lines to help the driver through the curve. There was a couple of options of how to correct the guardrail or how to put the guardrail in. Again, we got about 20 foot of median out there, so what we chose to do is put the guardrail right in the middle of the median. The reason being is if the driver left the road just a little bit, it gives them a little forgiving area before they make contact with a guardrail. Next slide. So what did it look like? Well, as we were in the process of improving the curve, or removing the vegetation and installing the guardrail, that's what these pictures show. The good news, since the last 5 years, there have been a total of 43 crashes, but I'll point out there have been no fatals in the last 5 years. In fact, the guardrail has not been struck since, or had not been repaired since we have had installed the rail. So pretty good, I think, pretty good case study of the impacts to our system. Some other things, this is a little more specific to pavement markings. What you see there is them putting down a line. The retroreflectivity of the line, we spent a lot of efforts trying to figure out how bright the line is. We also focus on retroreflectivity of the line. When you put water on the line, we like to see light come back to the driver. This was a test bed out on Barrett Parkway. The good news is that we were able to try a new technology out. This is called all-weather thermo. And so the idea is you put water across the marking and it still retroreflects the light back to the driver's eye. So here's some results of that, and it's a lot of data, but point out is the stuff in red is not good. So the good news is, again, we tested a good pilot project. We're not 100% satisfied with our results out there in terms of the retroreflectivity readings, but we'll continue to monitor and look after that to see how this stuff performs over the life of the project. It's actually on the 6-lane section, the section we just widened in Barrett. Next slide. So some other measures, what's some other things that we can do to improve the lane lines and try, our goal really is to keep the driver and the vehicle in the lane. That's a good place to start. And so here's an example of out on Hurt Road at Shadyside. If you're familiar with the bridge, it's a concrete bridge deck. And we have some preformed contrast tape. The picture to the left shows they had actually done just a slight bit of grinding before I could get out there and take the before picture. But for the most part, that's what the line looked like before. Afterwards, we were able to put down some preformed contrast tape, which is it's basically a press-on application, and you'll see that it has a black outline on the back. There's a 5-inch line. There's an 8-inch line total, but it's a 5-inch line yellow. And so what happens is that black on that white gives you a good contrast so that you can improve the lane line and see the lane a little bit better. Particularly on concrete surfaces can be a little bit hard to get stuff to stick on it. Once you get that on there, it's hard to get it to unstick, if you will, so it's a good product. Some more pictures, tape projects again. This is Barrett Parkway over Nose Creek. Again, a before and after picture. This tape has performed very well for us. It's easy to put down, and also Georgia DOT uses it quite frequently as well. So some other countermeasures. What's some other things that we can do? Signs. We spent a lot of energy and effort on signs. We went out to the 28 high volume arterial sections of road. We went out, we actually measured every sign with a retroreflectometer. So the idea there is instead of doing, some agencies do what's called a blanket replacement. They replace the sign irregardless. We did not do that. We think the most cost-effective measure is to go out and measure the sign, see that it needs to be replaced, and replace it. The good news is there's a fairly small budget that we're working with here, but only 1 in 5 of the total signs needed to be replaced up to current standards. That's a really good thing. That means the infrastructure was in decent shape before we went out there and was able to get us some new signs. Also, Federal Highway Administration, through their data, shows that between 30 and 34% reduction in crashes is something that we can expect with good signs and lines. So what does it look like? What does all those signs those signs look like as an investment when we go out on our infrastructure This is what it looks like at night, and I wish I'd have had a good before picture afterwards, but if you could just use sort of your imagination and envision that there was nothing before. This is what's called Type 11 cube curbs sign sheetings, high-end sheeting signs. It's not reflective, it's actually retro-reflective. The idea is we don't want the light just to cast off. We want the light to come back into your eyes so that you can see it. So that's what that shows. The bottom right also shows that's actually preformed contrast tape, and shows how bright that is at night, as well as the reflective RPM markings on the road as well. Paved shoulder, and that's very difficult to see here. Paved shoulders are important because what it does is it provides a recovery area for the drivers if they decide to leave the road. So what becomes a challenge is how do you best utilize your asphalt? If you only have, say, 10 foot to start with, and you want to go out and build 12 foot, is it better to build an 11-foot lane, 12 foot of asphalt, and mark an 11-foot lane and leave a shoulder? Or is it better to stripe a 12-foot lane with 0 shoulder? So the purpose of this illustration, though, is hard to read, but it's highway safety measures or countermeasures, factors that help us as engineers determine what sort of cross-section we want to run. Summarize it, we like a 12 foot of asphalt or 24 foot of asphalt total, striped at 11 foot. What does that do? That gives you a foot of shoulder buffer area. Next slide. So what does that look like? So before we had, certainly on the left of your slide, you had a condition of 11-foot lane with no shoulder. So afterwards we were able, this is sort of an interim picture because we were actually able to go in and overlay and make it look nice for the total width of the asphalt. But the idea there is that we get another foot of length, a foot of asphalt, and give our drivers a safe recovery area. A few other things particularly in that fixed object family. I'm proud to report that we have removed 245 utility poles since 2011. That is because of a good and aggressive utility permitting process. The idea there is if they upgrade the utility pole, they need to push it to the back of the right-of-way so that it gives us a good clean clear zone. And also we continue to upgrade what's called the BCT, which is the old breakaway cable terminals. That's an in-treatment on a guardrail. That is less than desirable. They were installed in the 80s, and they're not very flexible when you hit them. Next slide. Quick slide on the on the contributing factors. We see certainly lots of reasons why people crash, and excessive speed is one of them. Next slide. This slide's a little hard to read, but to deal with that excessive speed, we have a couple things going for us. We have a close partnership with our friends at Cobb PD. We also have some dynamic speed display signs that we're trying as pilot projects. We've installed them since November of 2014, and so what this data is showing us is that there was an initial reduction in speed, which we like. However, near the end, we're seeing a bit of a tick up in speed. So I don't know, when you drive them, do you have a tendency to get used to them being out there? Those are the signs that display your speed back. Do you go a little faster? That's sort of what we're thinking right now, but we need to keep a close eye on that. Another countermeasure is high friction surface course. This is a pilot project that we put out in March of 2014. This is on Cooper Lake Road. What high friction course is, you can see the way they install it, is engineers, we like friction. Friction keeps the road, keeps the driver or vehicle on the road. Does two things. It impacts your stopping sight distance, lets you stop faster, and also does a little bit on your lateral offset, keep you on the road longer, hopefully. So what this is we see them, we put the tar down, we put the machine that shakes over the material on top of the asphalt. Next slide. So what does it look like? That's that same high friction surface course that we put out on Cooper Lake Road. This is 16 months after the installation. We're seeing good wear on it in the top right. Also, we had, with partnerships with Cobb PD, we went out and did a sled test on this to test how much friction we have. The good news is we have higher friction than what's not on it. So our test bed shows that we've improved the stopping the stopping distances as well as some offsets on the friction. So hopefully that was a good overview of not only the data that we have, some of the creative and innovative countermeasures that we've chosen, and also sharing some of the results that we have to this point.
Great work. Great job. Any questions, Commissioner Burrow?
Not really a question, but good job, and thanks for all the work, especially on Piedmont. Thank you.
Commissioner,
Thank you, Chairman. Question about all of these great techniques that you showed us today. How are they being integrated with the current resurfacing projects that we have?
Yeah, right. So, thanks for the question. Resurfacing the paved shoulder is probably the best example of that, so that when we go out, if we have inadequate width, then we can get another foot, in some cases a foot and a half if we can. So that would be through the current resurfacing program. Also through the current resurfacing program, we get the high-end retro, the pavement markings, the better pavement markings as well.
That nice tape that we saw?
Yeah, so you're right, so the nice tape.
Good.
We like the tape. So the tape, we started putting in the tape with our county forces about 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay.
And we have slowly been chipping away at these concrete decks. The next year or so, we will have had them all. We wanted to make sure that it performed the way we thought.
Okay.
So absolutely.
Very good. And lastly, one thing that caught my eye was that high friction surface. Is that being utilized in any of the resurfacing, or what qualifies an area to be a candidate for something like that?
Yeah. So we like our results so far. A candidate location is a location where we have a higher than expected number of run-off-the-road crashes in wet weather.
Okay.
We have a couple of ideas, locations in mind that would meet that criteria. The balance is if you, the advantage is it reduces spray, right? But it also gives you a little rougher road. So there's a little bit of a trade-off. If you go too high on friction, you end up with folks complaining about what they'll call a rough road. Asphalt guys don't like that.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
Commissioner Ott.
One question about the same product we're talking about. There's a lot of runways that use what's called high porous friction, and one of the problems that they have in the winter is the water gets down into what's causing the friction, and then when it freezes, you actually end up getting more ice.
Yes.
Is that a problem with this surface?
So we don't go quite that deep. As I understand, in runways, they go a lot deeper than we go in here. It's a very, we're not near as deep as that. But certainly, I think if you go too deep on your porous course, that could certainly happen, absolutely. But we just try not to go as deep.
So no landing aircraft on our roadway? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, you can just be a small one.
Be a small one, okay. Any other questions? Great job. Thank you, sir. That takes us to tab 2. County manager, present the proposed priority list of projects for the 2016 Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax Program. Mr. Ankerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. At the Board's request, I was asked as the county manager to work with staff and put together a proposed 2016 priority list. We looked at several approaches with the departments who in many cases had worked with the commissioners early on before we took the SPLOST list to the voters and pretty well understanding some of the priorities. One of the things about this one, Mr. Chairman, it's been proved several months ago, and our staff is anxious to get started, and everyone wants their project and they want full funding at the beginning. So we looked at several approaches. One was to bring back just a list of projects, and at the same time we went back knowing it's going to take time to implement it. We also know that in 6 months to a year with our cash flow we'll have enough funding that we can move projects around to make sure we address. And a number of these projects will allow us to go through design approval so that we can work on a pay-as-you-go type basis, which we worked in that in many cases. But it also gives a flexibility to the board if they so desire. We can look at accelerating projects if that's the direction, to borrow funding like we've done on some of the others. I work with all the departments involved with a lot of input in several committee meetings. I also work with Finance and Bill Volkman and Jim Pearson on this project list. And I'm going to ask Bill Volkman to come forward and present this priority list. Then any and all questions then can be directed towards me, and or if I have any more specifics, I will get you that answer. Or if we still have the department head in the room, we will ask them to come up and participate. With that, Mr. Chairman, I will say, Mr. Chairman, with your concurrence, when we put forth this for attachment for the minutes, it will have the work session, it will have the date on the cover sheet before it's spread on the minutes. I know that was not trying to anticipate, but I'm sure that's one of your pet peeves, and I just want to go ahead and put that on the table. With that, Mr. Chairman, I will ask Bill Volkman to come forward and do the presentation.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Bill.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you, County Manager. The 2016 SPLOST is a 6-year SPLOST with an estimated collection of $750 million. Those collections will be spread out between transportation, public safety, countywide projects, library, municipalities, parks and rec, information services, and property management. Although the collections do not begin until 2016, projects are moving forward through pre-funding of general fund dollars. On this slide, I've identified several of the agenda items that the board has approved, and then an additional one agenda item that will be presented on tonight's agenda for the board to consider. DOT has had approved or under consideration $400,000 of general fund pre-funding dollars. Library has had $50,000 of pre-funding. Property management, $65,000. Public safety, $195,000. In addition to the general fund pre-funding dollars that the board has approved, the board has also granted or approved loans from the Board of Health in the excess of $1 million to allow for pre-funding of these projects as well. All pre-funding will be repaid once the 2016 collections have begun. In addition to the pre-funding of general fund dollars and Board of Health, the board has approved capital leases to allow departments to purchase equipment ahead of SPLOST collections to achieve savings and to have equipment in place to better begin project work. For example, DOT had $1 million of inclement weather equipment. Public safety had $14 million of radio replacement, $3 million of police vehicles. And because we received such a good deal on early purchase of the radios, the cities chose to participate in that capital lease as well. All of these leases will be repaid over a 5-year period through the 2016 SPLOST collections. This slide shows the budgeted allocation of first-year collections. The $125 million that you see here is a very conservative number, and this projection was done during the recession. Just to give you an idea of how conservative this number is, in the calendar year 2014, SPLOST collections was $134 million compared to the $125 million here. So to take a conservative approach and to better get an idea of prioritization, we used the $125 million, knowing full well that if the economy continues as strong as it is, we will have excess dollars, as Mr. Hankerson stated, where we will be able to come back to the board and talk about moving projects around and doing a little bit more with the prioritization. After discussions with the department heads and meeting with the county manager, we were able to prepare a prioritized project list for the first year budgeted collections. Again, this is at the $125 million level, which we do anticipate collecting in excess. DOT rules will receive $44 million, which will allow them to begin 23 projects. And within this list, this will includes $200,000 that will be used to repay part of their capital lease for the inclement weather equipment. Public safety will receive $13.9 million, and within this $13.9 also includes capital lease payments of $3.4 million. This will allow public safety to begin 6 projects and to continue on their vehicle purchase, which was included as part of the capital lease, where they purchased $3 million of police vehicles, and this will allow them to purchase an additional $3.1 million of vehicles. Parks and Rec will receive $2.2 million and allow them to begin 11 of their 25 SPLOST projects. Information Services will receive $4.7 million, allow them to begin 4 projects, and this will fund 16% of Information Services' overall budget for the 2016 SPLOST. Senior Services will receive $347,000, which will allow them to do some preliminary work at the North Cobb Senior Center. Property Management will receive $4.6 million, allow them to receive funding for 8 of their overall 9 2016 SPOS projects. This does not fully fund these projects, but allows for preliminary work to begin on all of these projects. Next slide. East Marietta Library will receive $4.7 million, and this is 55% of this overall project's budget. The additional funding will come in year 2 as this project is moving towards completion. This is one of their 5 projects, but the highest of on the priority list. Countywide projects will receive $11.4 million, and you'll see here there's 13 countywide projects. 12 of them receive funding in the first year. The only one to not receive any funding is our 800 megahertz core replacement, which will be fully funded in the last 2 years of collection, as those collections are mirrored with the time that we are going to phase in it's a 10-year cycle, and we just completed our last core replacement, so got pushed to the end of the priority list for the countywide projects. All other countywide projects will be funded in the first 2 years of collections. And with that, if you have any questions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Ankerson. Any questions from the board? Any comments, direction, thoughts? So if you were the county manager, would you be leaving this meeting with the assumption that the board is somewhat comfortable with the recommendation?
I would leave here with the assumption the board is somewhat comfortable and they would be getting back with me or to look at these priorities, because I'm not asking for a vote or any direction from the board today.
So you'll welcome some thoughts moving forward in the near future?
Yes, sir. And
Okay.
certainly, as we pointed out, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Volkman pointed out, we anticipate more revenue, and we can go ahead and prioritize and move some of those. According to Mr. Jim Pearson, after the first year, we have a lot of flexibility with the budget in this, due to the fact that some of the projects are multi-year projects.
Yeah, well, we'll have to keep an eye on that. If the market's any indication what's happened in the last couple of days, how volatile it really is, we need to just continue our conservative approach. I think that's a good strategy. Any comments, questions? Commissioner Burrow?
I just want to say thank you. I know you've been pulled in a lot of different directions and gotten a lot of good input from staff to come up with this list. And I think, to me, it looks very fair for all of us that, certain projects will at least be started to get funding the first year. So thank you for trying to make us all happy up here.
Thank you, Commissioner, and I think this is a good example where, in our meeting with staff and meeting with each of you periodically in discussion, there was a good example that my staff was listening to the comments and some of your priorities, and we tried to work within those parameters, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if nothing further for this afternoon, Mr. County Manager will be back at 7 o'clock for our regular meeting.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.